right, let's see if this works. Yeah. We'll try this with music. Music is clear. My voice is clear. Yeah, looks like we're back in business, folks. Okay. I'm glad this is working. I'm glad this sounds better. Someone on the TikTok suggested that I look to see if the whatchamacallit, I just lost the term. To check if the sample rate was the same for you know, for all the audio devices, and it wasn't. There was somewhere something got mixed up, so I fixed that and had to restart. So we're working. Yeah, 3 streams. I'm gonna have to go to my YouTube and like clean up these false starts. People were asking me questions on the TikTok about things, and I probably should answer them. I mean, they're not here anymore, but I'll still answer them. Yeah, the tiny kitchenette belongs to my children. I have 2 children. I talk about this somewhat frequently, but I have 2 children, and they are young. Thank you, Hayden. I don't think I'm particularly cool. I appreciate you saying that about my style, but I myself, I'm kind of a big square. I'm not cool, but I appreciate that. If I'm a square, then what is Ross? No comment. No comment. It would be inappropriate for me to comment. I'm playing Secret of Mana. It's a classic action RPG for the Super Nintendo. Big ticket items from Santa? Not so much. This is not a Game Boy game, it's a SNES game. There was an earlier Game Boy game, yes. The I believe it was the first Final Fantasy Legend, or was it Seiken Densetsu? Was that what the game title is? One, yes. Yeah, Final Fantasy Adventure. That's right. So someone's asking me where I got this jacket from. So this is a secondhand Ralph Lauren jacket that I got off of eBay. I was sort of just like idly searching for a military style jacket, and I found this. I bought it for like $80. Any gut feelings on the Elise Stefanik retirement? Seems like a wild implosion of GOP electoral competitive prospects. Well, I mean, first of all, the fact that so many people are retiring. I think one of the Montana or Wyoming senators is retiring as well. So we have lots of retirements, and that to me is a clear sign, right, of something's going down. But I would say that Stefanik is like a testament to the folly of trying to kind of ride this Trump wave. I mean, Trump does not care about any of these people, and Stefanik hitched her entire political career to him, and it was a terrible gamble. And now she's, now she's done for. That's the end. She's probably done in politics. And at least Stefanik, terrible, opportunistic, was trying to push that great replacement bullshit. But like, as far as Republicans go, she was young, maybe had a promising career. But yeah, she's done. And I think that's, I'll say this. I think the Trump era is coming to an end. I think, especially if this next year, if the midterms really are catastrophic for the Republican Party, then that's the Trump that's going to mark the end of the Trump era. Like, he will be the lamest of lame ducks, and they're going to want to get away from him. And I think what we're going to see is that it's going to be impossible for them to get away from him. I mean, this is where kind of the specific, I often think the people overrate the significance of the particular political choices of Democratic politicians or any politicians, right? Like so much of this stuff is, it's like macro level things that are shaping outcomes. But here I think it is going to matter how Democrats talk about Republicans. And if they talk about Republicans, if they talk about them as if like, oh, our you know, our colleagues or whatever, let's try to get back to normalcy, and they don't try to tie Trump entirely to them, I think that's going to be a real issue. Someone's asking me, do I remember what if I remember what I felt like when I started my career? I do not. That was 15 years ago. All right. What do I need to be doing here? I don't think Romney's getting back into politics. I think he's too old. I think he's trying to figure out his legacy. What do I think? So I saw that City Journal panel of young conservatives, terrifying stuff. I mean, I do think the race resentment genie's out of the bottle. I think that like open racism in politics is here for at least a little while, for the duration. I don't know. It's quite disturbing that, like, at least for some of these people, at least on that panel, I did a video about this. I haven't edited or posted it yet. I'll do that tomorrow. But it's super disturbing that a bunch of these kids are like, you know, what's so bad about Hitler? You know, I gotta be honest. This is stuff I just like fundamentally don't understand. You know, I didn't grow up in like the most. I didn't grow up in like the most ultra tolerant place, but I certainly grew up in a place where we got drilled into us the whole sort of, you know, Nazism is bad, the Holocaust is real, it happened. We don't want that ever to happen again. Like that was like part of my education, drilled in quite well, and I honestly don't understand. Like I don't get it on like kind of very fundamental level. I don't get the return of this stuff. It's like, what do you mean you can see what Hitler meant about German greatness? Like, what are you talking about? Yeah, it is an alien thought process. Is it just stupidity? Is it just people, stupid, thoughtless people? I don't know, but I find it so baffling. I mean, if I had to, some of it feels like a little bit of solipsism, which I guess kind of figures for sort of like very conservative right-wing people. Like they just can't imagine the existence of other minds. And so the idea of people like suffering and dying is just a pure abstraction to them. But I don't know. Again, I don't get it. Fundamentally don't understand it. I is the dough sorry, I'm going to TikTok now. Is the Doughboys tour headed to DC? I have not been listening to recent episodes. If the Doughboys tour, why can't I speak? If the Doughboys tour is headed to DC, then I might reach out to them and be like, "Yo, I would love to participate." Have I met Eric Foner? Yes, I've not only met Eric Foner, he emails me sometimes, and I've had dinner with him. Am I getting anything from the Ralph Lauren Lunar New Year's collection? I don't buy anything new from Ralph Lauren. I can't afford that. I buy a lot of stuff secondhand. I mean, I do buy some stuff new, but the stuff I buy new at that like price level tends to be made to measure because I have like odd proportions. But I don't buy new Ralph Lauren, and generally this stuff is a little too slim for me. It's not that I'm like a especially large person, but the house style Ralph Lauren is like kind of slim fitting by default, and not for me. All right. I feel like I've talked to everyone in this town, and I still cannot quite figure out where I need to be. This person's already told me to shut up multiple times. Yeah, so Bill the Cat. I do think that like some of this is people saying things ironically as like a gag or a joke, and that kind of just like rots your brain. Um, but even still, Gaia's navel. What was I gonna say? Yeah, I don't know. I just don't get it. I don't understand it. I in general, I don't understand prejudice and bigotry. I mean, like I get it intellectually, but just the idea that I would have animus towards someone because they look different than me, it seems very silly. Like it doesn't make any sense to me. But grievance and animus towards people I don't know, who just are superficially different than me, makes no sense. Or you can cut the grass in the game. I just don't have a sword equipped. Ever play more contemporary RPGs? The most recent RPG I played, like that was recent, was Unicorn Overlord, which I loved. I have nothing to play Expedition 33 on, so probably not. Unless it shows up for Switch 2, then that might get me to buy a Switch 2. Well, then maybe I'll buy a Steam Cube. Well, I'm not using a PC. Like you know, I'm doing this on a on an M4 Mac Mini, which is powerful enough for my purposes, you know. My favorite holiday movies. Well, I like Tokyo Godfathers. I love my favorite Christmas movie is Trading Places. um, but like that's a movie I can't watch with my kids, of course. The Muppet Christmas Carol. I do like It's a Wonderful Life, you know, classic. The original Miracle on 34th Street is quite good. But you know, this week I've been mainly watching Rob Reiner movies just because, you know, RIP. Having my first kid in February, any fatherly wisdom to bestow? Uh, in my experience and in the experience of other fathers I know, the first 6 months is gonna you're simultaneously gonna want to be like, how do I put this? Your kid is gonna be so much more interested in your partner and your wife, I presume, than they are going to be interested in you for obvious reasons, right? Like, and that can, I think, if you're not prepared for it, especially and how much work those first 6 months are, how exhausting it can be, that can be alienating. And I think the thing to remember is just not to take it personally, and to think of yourself as basically your wife's helper and assistant, like, and doing as much as you can so that she can, give as much attention as she can to the kid. Also, you don't really need that much stuff. People are going to give you a lot of stuff. Get some like cloth diapers, not necessarily to use as diapers, but to use as like claws for the many things you will, the baby will be spitting up on you a lot, poop, all these things, lots of fluids, and it'll be very useful to have those around. Sleep when you can. That's really important. Try to develop good routines, because the routines you develop, I think, in these first 6 months are really going to shape the next several years of your life. So you want to make sure you got that on lock. Do I dabble in current day games? Yes, on my Switch. Listen, you guys want me to play modern games, and I'm going to like stubbornly play retro games. The more you ask. Sorry, I got interrupted. I got interrupted by a stupid question. So we're gonna talk about it real quick. Your identity is so entwined to the New York Times. It's in your Twitch account name. Yikes, dude. No, my Twitch account is called JBowieNYT because I occasionally use it for official New York Times stuff, and it's useful to have that there. And B, there are apparently, news to me, other JBowies out there. And I'm the one who works for the New York Times. And so JBowieNYT. If you are like, does Jamel Bowie, a person I follow on TikTok or Blue Sky or Instagram, does he have a Twitch? The NYT helps you figure out that, yes, it is indeed me. So this isn't my identity being entwined with the New York Times. This is a very practical way of identifying myself for people who might want to find me. So people say there are no such thing as stupid questions, but that's wrong. There are, in fact, stupid questions, and that was a stupid question. Someone, why am I dressed like a draftee from 1962 serving in Korea? Well, funny you asked that. The hat I'm wearing is literally a replica hat from around the 1960s. So, There's that. The jacket, of course, modeled over after mid-century army jackets, and I do own one item from the real McCoys, which is a Navy utility jacket from the 1960s. I do own a couple pairs of utility pants. Listen, my dressing like a person serving in the army in the 1960s, I could do way more than this. Hey, Pat, how's it go? How's it going? Yes, you can mini max my retro game playing if you ask me about modern games. That's true. What's the coolest historical item I own? This is a TikTok question. This is gonna sound insane when I say it, but it's true. I have a circa 1840 something portrait of South Carolina Senator John C. Calhoun. It's not hanging up anywhere, but I do own it. John C. Calhoun, one of the all-time worst Americans. But I got it from someone. And I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but I do own it. And I do find Calhoun kind of fascinating, I'll be honest with you. No, Calhoun is not the caning guy. The caning guy is Preston Brooks. I don't have recommendations for a bomber jacket. I've actually been trying to find one. I want a warm weather one, a cold weather one, rather. Get that fucking bat off me. I want a cold weather one, but I'm not really sure. Where to find one. I have read Karp's book, This Vast Southern Empire. I have mixed feelings about Karp as a political commentator, but he's a pretty good historian, and I think that's a pretty good book. There's an A1 flight jacket, which is a bit longer, kind of like a parka, that's beautiful. From the real McCoys, but A, it's not in my size, and B, it's like $2,000. But I like combining the military jacket with tailoring. I think it's a fun look. What are we doing here? Uh, I'm not going to tell you what the game is. You can just look at the screen. Good places to look for vintage clothes. I mean, honestly, eBay. It's just you gotta really search. Good. Have any combo suggestions for trying corduroy for the first time? I mean, corduroy is very casual. It's cotton, very casual fabric. You wear it with a pair of jeans, dark color corduroy jacket, light colored jeans. An Oxford shirt. It's a perfectly respectable look. Have I had any bad experiences with buying on eBay? I haven't, but I'm also like very picky and like I patient. I'll just wait to see until you can use saved searches and the like, and I'll just wait until my searches ping something that I'm looking for. Do I have a New Year's resolution? I don't really do New Year's resolutions. Never have. Not really my thing. I have things I might want to accomplish, right? Like so things I want to accomplish this upcoming year. Get this balloon off me. I want to complete this compilation book project I'm working on where I'm gonna, I'm gonna do a selection of essays from the past 5 years in a book with some new material. So I'm gonna get that done in 2026. I giving some various talks, so I gotta write things. I'm gonna work on some new speeches for the year. Uh, you know, spend time with the family. You actually use my vacation time, which I'm very bad about doing. Well, my speeches are usually attempts to synthesize ideas I've been playing with in my work. Ooh, fuck. I think conservatives pointing the finger at Democrats when asked about the rise of Trump are just in denial. They're just in denial about the movement, in denial about the motivation, in denial about the popular base for right wing politics in this country. And I just roll my eyes. Like it's not. There's no use in even engaging with it anymore. So, what does vacation look like for Jamel Bowie? It looks like going to a city that I've never been to before and wandering around for a week and eating a lot. That's vacation for me. city I've visited that has the best food. It depends on where. In North America, I mean, I've never been to Mexico City, so, but I can say places I have had very memorable meals are New Orleans, of course, and Montreal. Right. Yeah. I mean, like plenty of perceptive observers in the 80s and 90s could clearly see something like Trump happening. And as my buddy John Gans points out in his book When the Clock Broke, I mean, you had that in David Duke and Pat Buchanan in the 90s. So I just, conservatives insisting that, Trump had nothing to do with them. Like in 2011, I mean, people forget this, right? But in 2011, you had Trump leading polls of Republican primary voters, in part because of it, and not in part, entirely because of his birtherism. You had Mitt Romney going to Trump in 2012 to get his blessing, get his endorsement. Like, Trump was a part of Republican politics, and Trump is a product of the Republican Party. And all these conservatives who want to sort of be like, oh, it wouldn't have happened if not for, it's like, shut the fuck up. It's always seemed like it. The idea that for I'll say it, for someone like Stevens, there's basically no, there's like no, there's no, the only Democrat he would find acceptably moderate enough is essentially like a Republican, a conservative Democrat. Although his sense of what liberalism is entirely skewed by the fact that he spends all of his time around like other wealthy New Yorkers. Right, is there anything else I need to do here? If Dems win in 2028 and DJT just responds by pardoning everyone, in your opinion, should Democrats ignore the pardon so that the cronies can be held accountable? Yes. Yes. Ignore the pardons. Hold people accountable. Someone's asking at TikTok, just checking if this stream for us to ask political questions or just for you to chill and game. You can ask me political questions. I'm probably going to be on the stream for about 15 more minutes because it is getting late and I need to wake up at like 6:30 tomorrow morning. So you got 15 minutes to ask me more questions. And I may actually switch to no longer gaming so I can pay attention to your questions. Yeah, so I think it's actually going to be pretty easy to remove Trump's name from stuff. I think again, it's just a matter of how Democrats understand what the situation is. It's going to be a matter of how unpopular Trump is. I think if Trump is very unpopular, and the 2028 election is run on sort of not just getting past this era, but like repudiating it, it'll be easy enough to just remove stuff full sale. Any chance Democrats become more favorable for the fossil fuel industries? I don't know. I mean, I don't really have a view or opinion on that. I mean, green technology is moving so quickly that it feels sort of backwards to be trying to increase fossil fuel production. I know Iglesias is making that argument. I have not read his argument, so I can't really comment on it or contest it. But do I think the Democrat leadership actually has the fortitude to punish the people responsible for this mess? No, but I think voters will. And one of my big critiques of the way people talk about politics online is that they sort of maintain this like weird separation between themselves and the Democrats. But like ultimately, what the Democrats are going to do is highly structured and influenced by what voters want and how voters behave and what you do and what you want. And so I think that if you want the Democratic Party or Democratic lawmakers to try to hold people accountable after this, then you have to make it a political demand. It has to be a paramount political demand. It's really that straightforward. I think Iglesias has an extremely static and unnuanced view of public opinion. I think that static and unnuanced view of public opinion does not make room for the fact that people do not have hard and fast ideas about particular issues. It does not have room for political leadership, like actual politics. I think he has adopted a kind of crude version of medium voter theorem as sort of his like lodestar. And I think it's very silly. And I think you can quite clearly see in so many instances, not that you should ignore public opinion, but that it's, you know, responding to public opinion is actually a little more complicated than just do the popular thing. And I also think that a lot of the populism stuff is a bit of a hiding the ball of what the actual intent is, which I find quite frustrating. Have I been offered a CBS debate with Barry Weiss? No, I have not, and I don't expect that I will be. Those people don't think of me as a serious discourse person. There is, I mean, one of the interesting things I find about my career is the distance between the kind of influence I seem to have with like regular readers and people and influence within kind of, you know, the business. Um, Switching away from the game for now. To be perfectly honest, like my big issue with Iglesias isn't even really his views, which, like, you know, I disagree with some of them. Some of them are somewhat reasonable. Like, I don't know. It's not even his views. It's his sort of like demeanor and attitude, which he just is kind of a troll, but he's like a thin skinned troll. Like he trolls. And then when people respond to him as such, he gets upset about it, which I find just not, I don't like that. I don't like that. And the other thing is his trolling. I found like so the thing that I'll be honest here. The thing that moved me from I find him kind of annoying to I hold him kind of contempt was after the excuse me if I'm pronouncing this wrong. I pronounce many things wrong. After the Uvalde shooting, and it's like, you know, it's like that day, that afternoon, and people are expressing their grief on Twitter, and they're expressing their anger at the fact that this is a country where these things happen. And he posts, "I think America is still a great place to live." And he's clearly responding to the people's expression of grief and anger. He's clearly trolling that expression of grief and anger. And it was just sort of like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, just if it's annoying to you, log off. But like, why would you post that? Like, a bunch of kids just got killed. Why would you post that? And I think I said to him I think I like replied to him on Twitter, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" And I still feel that way. It's even recounting this makes me really angry, because it's just sort of like it is a sign of like low. I always say poor character, of low character. It's a sign of low character to say something like that, to post something like that at that time, in that moment. So after that, I've been kind of just like, you know what, whatever. Yeah, I'm also just, in the same way that there are lots of, I'm sure lots of centrists who view people like me who are sort of like, to be perfectly honest, a little sanctimonious about their principles as sort of like, oh, you're the reason why people lose. I view people who don't seem to have any firm beliefs, don't seem to believe anything, with a lot of suspicion. I don't trust them. The Baldwin book behind me is just a new big bio of Baldwin, and yes, I plan to see Avatar 3. How poorly do I think the GOP will perform in the 2026 elections? Right now I think it's gonna be pretty bad. Right now I think depending depend a 12 to 13 point swing is entirely possible. If things get bad enough with Trump, if he becomes sufficiently unpopular, then like a 15 or 16 point swing is possible, and that's just catastrophic. I wasn't talking about a politician, I was talking about another writer. Right, this is the thing. I mean, this is my kind of theory of the case when it comes to sort of like electoral stuff, which is that I sort of think debates about ideology are a bit beyond the point, besides the point. In part because what concrete policy you'll be able to get accomplished in Washington is going to be, it's going to be determined ultimately by who are the most conservative Democrats in the caucus, because you're negotiating within caucus, and they're going to be the principal kind of like obstacles, veto points. So it's like, there are things where it's going to matter. Their orientation is going to matter. Obviously, in the use of the executive branch is going to matter. But I think people get a little too much caught up in it. The things I'm interested in are you a partisan? Like, do you see yourself, your goal, as one of your jobs, as building a stronger Democratic Party and like actually trying to beat Republicans? Are you willing to play hardball, which is the thing that many Democrats are not? That includes voters. I posted a video about expanding the Supreme Court, and I have so many comments about, well, what if the Republicans do it? There's so unwillingness to play hardball. And do you believe things? Like having principles, having things from which you will not budge, no matter what. That doesn't mean you won't compromise on particular policy things, but you're not going to budge on these principles. I think is really important. I think it's vitally important. And I'm just basically suspicious and skeptical and distrustful of anyone who I think doesn't have principles of that kind. But why do I think Democrats are so unfocused on consistently gaining or retaining power? I don't think that's an accurate assessment of Democrats. I think that the Democratic Party, compared to its international peers, has a pretty decent win-loss record. I think it's important to distinguish, you know, like we're all political hobbyists here. We all play a little amateur strategist, right? Like, but I've never run in or won like an election. And I think that should give us a little humility about what we know about winning votes and winning elections. That said, it's not that I don't think Democrats are like don't try to win. Like they very much tried to win elections. Having been around quite a few professional Democrats, they very much tried to win elections. The issue is like just their theory of what that looks like and what that requires. and sort of ingrained cultural habits among particular generations of Democrats. What was my best take this year, and which one do you think didn't hold up? I think my best take this year was that Trump is running a revenge campaign against the entire country. I think that very much holds up. One that didn't hold up so much is, I think I said maybe on Blue Sky or something, that I thought that I thought the incompetence might like be kind of a limiting factor in the authoritarianism. And that was just wrong, straight up. So that wasn't a Times roundtable. That was a Manhattan Institute roundtable. And someone's asking me, do I think Ben Dominic is low-key obsessed with you? Has Ben Dominic been talking about me on X or something? Here's what I think. I think that there's a whole little clique of people who are kind of low-key preoccupied by me, or who find me like uniquely enraging for reasons. Some of those reasons might be that I've talked shit about them. Like, I've talked shit about Ben Dominic, and I'll continue to talk shit about him. He's a plagiarist, and he doesn't have any principles. Ben Dominic, who is just a conservative hack, wrote a piece back in 2015, I think it was. Maybe it was 2016, where he asked Republicans if they wanted to be the party of white nationalism. And then, like 2 years later, he's like fully on the Trump train. So it's like, I don't know. You're a plagiarist. And this is true. He was fired from the Washington Post for plagiarism. Then a couple years later, he was fired from another job for taking payola from a foreign government. And he's a fucking hack. And so if me saying things like that makes people like that so upset that they're like obsessed with me, then all right, whatever. They can be obsessed with me. It's like, not to sound like full of myself or anything, but it's like a bunch of C grade conservative pundits are, every so often go on their social media pages and are like, Jamo Bouie's stupid, or Jamo Bouie's dumb, or some whatever set of insults that they have. And it's like, I don't give, whatever. I work at the New York Times. I have a pretty large platform. A lot of people like and respect my work. I don't give a fuck what you care. I don't, let them cook. Like, I don't care. Yeah, it very much is like, and I don't think about you at all. Not only do I not think about them, it's sort of like, to me, responding to them would be like stepping on an ant. Like, pff, all right. Have I ever been offered payola? No. Do I ever wish I had gone right-wing grifter to make enormous money? No, I do not. I like living with my, I enjoy having a good conscience, I feel like if someone calls you dumb, they might be a paste eater. Yeah, there are people who are like, I mean, I know why they think I'm stupid. It has a little something to do with this, but plenty of people are like, you're stupid. I am streaming on TikTok. Yes. Bibble babble. The best pho place in Charlottesville is Up 29 over by a dental office, kind of adjacent. It's like a furniture store. I know where it is. I forget what it's called. Someone asked me, where do I stand on socialism? I feel like this question is clearly answered in my work. I've described myself in various ways as a social democrat, as a democratic socialism, democratic socialist. The way I see it, here's my view. Here's how I see things. I think fulfilling the promise of liberalism requires socialism, and fulfilling the promise of socialism requires liberalism. So that's what I think. It's why I sort of I'm sort of indifferent to constant arguments about liberals versus the left. Like, I don't care about that stuff. Do I think Soc Dems and Dem Soc will ever meaningfully team up in America? I don't think there's any. I don't think that there is any particular chance of any kind of successful left-wing movement in this country that isn't inclusive of the broad American left. That includes liberals and Dem Soc and all those folks. And also, most people cannot tell the difference between those two. Okay, so when people ask me about, the other Times columnists, like, do you guys talk in the office, stuff like that? Okay, so first of all, I don't live in New York. I don't work in an office. I don't see these people. There are Times columnists with whom I am friends, but for the most part, I'm not chatting with the gang. So not only do I not talk with John McWhorter, I've maybe met him one time total. Someone asked me, am I married? Yes, I am married. Don't got to apologize. Just people ask that kind of question a lot. No, they don't send us on fancy retreats to Aspen together. Yeah, McWhorter is a great and interesting linguist. And then when he writes about politics, he seems brain damaged. I really shouldn't have said that, but, uh, you know. Yeah, I mean, you can tell with him and with a lot of people that, like, their politics is more about being annoyed by a specific group of people than it is about anything like concrete or material. People asking me, okay, for Sinners or Weapons, I think I enjoyed Sinners more than Weapons. Um, where did I get my sense of fashion from? I don't know. I grew up in a military family, so I get the military gear. That's where that comes from, I suppose. I don't know. I'm not that introspective. Where am I with the Muppets? I enjoy the Muppets. What did I make for dinner? My in-laws were over and my wife's aunt was over as well. So I made carnitas. I made some tortillas, refried beans, Mexican rice, salsas, lots, some chopped up cilantro, radishes, onion, that kind of thing. I am from Virginia Beach, and I also graduated from Kellum. I graduated from Kellum in 2005. What was it like growing up there? It was fine, you know. Experienced my fair share of racism. That was great. But it was I had a perfectly fine, upbringing. Nothing traumatizing. Yeah. Once again, TikTok has kicked me off of live. Don't really know why. Huh, weird. I should probably be signing off soon anyway. I think it might be a time limit thing. I think it probably is a time limit thing. Because it kicked me off roughly the same amount of time last time. If you had to have one name, is it Tails or Miles? It's Miles. I always like Miles, Tails, yeah, Prower. There we go. Do I have a favorite Muppet movie? It's probably The Muppets Take Manhattan. Thoughts on Chrono Cross? I've never played it. How much sour cream do I use? I don't eat sour cream, but I do use it in place of buttermilk. Like I'll substitute some of the buttermilk in like a cornbread or waffles or something with sour cream. I think if Dems overperform in the midterms, you'll see the Republicans start to lose their mind. No, that's not crazy. So it's not that it has less calories; it's that buttermilk has more fat. I mean, that buttermilk, sour cream has more fat. And so let's say you're making biscuits, which I do quite often, and you need a cup of buttermilk. If you swap half that buttermilk with sour cream, you're just adding way more fat, and it will help make a more tender biscuit. I've said this in other venues, but biscuits aren't really about a recipe. It's like technique, right? Like use frozen butter and you grate it. You don't crumble it. You grate frozen butter. You keep all your ingredients cold. You have a sense of when you've worked the dough too much, or you have a sense of when it's just the right amount of layering. Like it's all technique and feel and experience, not so much recipe. I think, one of my favorite baked goods, pastries, it is just an almond croissant. I love an almond croissant. It's like top tier for me. With like the little almond paste in the middle. Love it. What makes the Criterion edition of a movie unique? It has lots of extras. Usually has an essay on the movie as well. Nice packaging, nice new artwork. It's sort of like a nicer version than like a commodity Blu-ray. That's all. Sometimes Criterion will work directly with the directors to do restorations. Sometimes, yeah, a higher quality transfer. Well, you don't want to just add butter, right? Because like butter, remember, butter is somewhere between 80 to 85% fat, and then 20 to 15% water. So if you add more butter, you're adding more water as well, and you have to deal with that. But if you swap out some buttermilk for some sour cream in these biscuits, you're not adding any more liquid, but you are adding more fat. I'm not that far into boutique Blu-rays. I think Andor's great. I think Andor is one of the best television shows of like the past half decade. I don't got a problem with the setting. I think as a film, as a picture, Rogue One is bad. And with that, I'm gonna sign off. Thank you guys for joining, as always. I may see you tomorrow. I will see you next week, I think. If I don't see you next week, happy holidays. Merry Christmas.